It's just a smarter and better and easier way to own, which is why billionaires are doing it.
Right.
We weren't even accepting Amazon packages in our house, and here we were trying to convince people to share a vacation home. Can you imagine how daunting that would be? Interestingly, I think that high interest rates are actually going to create more of a tailwind for our business than a headwind. And the reason why is because so long term, I believe that co-ownership in the vacation home asset class will be as ubiquitous as condominiums in a big city.
Austin, thank you for coming on today. Man, I'm excited to really talk to you about Pacaso. I just love this platform. Matter of fact, I got a friend, Ken Ashley, that turned me on to it years ago, and I've stayed in his house that is part of Pacaso in Hilton Head. And he loved it, got me turned on to it. That's why I reached out to you guys, because I think your story, you're kind of a goat or a unicorn, I should say, in the tech space. Your first startup, you built up Dotloop, I guess, Dotloop, and built it up, sold that to Zillow, and now you've got Pacaso, and it's a home run. And so I appreciate you taking the time to come on today.
Thanks for the opportunity. Excited to be here, Joe.
So tell us a little bit about Pacaso. Let's start with what it really is.
So Pacaso is a global marketplace that enables people to co-own luxury vacation homes together. If you're familiar with, a lot of people are familiar with NetJets, which is a co-ownership solution for the aviation industry. Pacaso is kind of like NetJets, but for luxury vacation homes. If you're a aspiring homeowner, or maybe you already own a second or third home and you're looking for something else, you can look to Pacaso as a solution that enables you to just buy what you need. You can buy as little as 1/8 of the home or as much as 1/2, depending on how much you want to use the property. And then Pacaso manages every aspect of the ownership experience, from design to furnishing to bill pay to maintenance, so that you as the owner get to actually enjoy the home as opposed to being burdened by all the headaches that are customary with traditional home ownership. So that's the business at a high level. We've been around since 2020 is when we launched, and we've been fortunate to experience a lot of success. We operate in about 40 markets, 4 countries. Most of our markets are in the US, but we're also in Paris, London, and Cabo, and going to be expanding pretty rapidly, outside of the US in 2025 and beyond.
Very good. And this is a $1.3 trillion market. So I've read that. I read different numbers, but they all come in around 1.3 trillion. Is that about right?
It's a giant market. When you're assessing TAMs, total addressable markets, like this that are so large, it's a bit of a swag exercise. There's no way to know for sure how big the market is, but one thing that we do know for sure is that it's huge. And whether it's 1.3 trillion or 1.6 trillion or 900 billion is TBD. But the reason why we know that it's huge is because there are a lot of families who aspire to own second homes. We've done a bunch of survey work on this and found that about 75% of people with discretionary income are interested in owning a second home. After your primary home, this is one of the first things that people start to think about. And the reason why so many people are interested in it and love their second homes is because it enables them to live a better life. While the primary home is super important, and should take first priority over a second home, obviously, the second home is special in its own way. It provides this sort of special place where you can be the best version of yourself, the best father, the best partner, the best, kind of hobbyist, whether you like, say, snowboarding or mountain biking or surfing. These are things that you make more time for at your second home that are harder at your primary home, because your primary home is so much about utility. It's about, doing laundry and taking the kids to school and dishes and all the other stuff that happens on the hamster wheel of life. So there's a lot of demand for second homes, which makes the market really big. But the other thing to note as it relates to the addressable market is that there's also a lot of supply of empty second homes. most people who buy a second home only use it 5 or 6 weeks a year, which means it sits empty for 10 or 11 months a year. And there are tens of millions, if not more than 100 million of those homes around the world. And our opportunity is about connecting those two things, connecting aspiring second homeowners with empty second homes in the same way that Airbnb connected aspiring travelers with empty bedrooms.
Okay. I love your origin story, how you got started with the idea. Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, so I'll start from kind of early on. When I was 18 years old, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Came from a kind of a modest upbringing, living paycheck to paycheck, and had to find a way to pay for college. So I became a real estate agent. That was my solution to pay for college. And I sold real estate all through undergrad and went to law school after undergrad. And during that experience, I found myself chasing buyers and sellers around town to get documents signed on the hood of my car. Because at the time, this was, mid 2000s, like 2005, 2006, we were still doing deals with paper and fax machines. And it seemed obvious to me that the internet and smartphones were going to transform the way that we buy and sell real estate. So I created a platform with an amazing team of people that digitized real estate transactions. That platform was called dotloop, and we launched dotloop in 2009. We became a category leader. About half of all transactions in the United States flow through dotloop. Probably more than that now. That was when I left. And we sold to Zillow in 2015. I stayed on at Zillow as an executive for about 4 years before leaving to start Pacaso. And the sort of original idea for Pacaso, though, started for me in 2013. So even I was still running dotloop before the Zillow sale. My wife and I had an opportunity to buy a second home in Lake Tahoe. We were living in San Francisco at the time. And this second home just changed our lives. It became such an important part of who we are. We met new friends. We, became part of the community. And we just became the best versions of ourselves at Lake Tahoe. So I was really inspired by this second home experience. And I was also a bit frustrated by how broken the traditional second home ownership model is. And the brokenness really is caused by the underutilization. When you're only using a home 5 or 6 weeks a year, it's hard to manage the home. It's hard to justify owning the home. Oftentimes these homes are several hundred, if not several thousand miles away from where you live, which is hard to manage. They're also in places that are complicated. Like in Lake Tahoe, we get 60 feet of snow on a good year. I mean, do you know how hard it is to manage 60 feet of snow? Like with that kind of snow, you're plowing snow off of your roof so that the roof doesn't collapse. And it's a market where labor is expensive, labor is short. So it's hard, right? And you end up, even if you can justify owning 100% of your second home, but you're only going to use 10% of the time, it's such a hassle that it erodes from the experience. So the whole idea behind Pacaso was, what if we could come up with a better way that enables people to buy what they actually plan to use, as opposed to buying all of this home that mostly goes to waste, while eliminating all the headaches. And that's what we've done. And it's like, it seems inevitable to me that co-ownership is going to become the preferred way to own a vacation home, in the same way that NetJets has become the preferred way to fly private.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think so. Can you kind of walk us through how you come up with how you divide the ownership up? Because I think that's going to be pretty interesting to everybody. I love the way you guys set it up.
Yeah, so we divide every home into 8 1/8 interests, and you can buy multiple if you wish. So a lot of people will buy a quarter. That's a pretty good, ownership structure, because it gives you most of the dates that you would want out of the calendar. And the legal structure is very straightforward and not something that we invented. It's just an LLC, and this is an ownership structure that is proven and has been proven over decades. in pretty much all the markets where we operate. So that's good, because people understand it, they trust it, and it's very flexible as it relates to like transferring ownership. It provides privacy, it provides liability protection. So we basically put each home in a property specific LLC. And when you buy into the home, you buy a portion of that home through the LLC. And then a really important part of our experience that is not so obvious on the surface, but becomes obvious once you're a Pacaso owner, is the fact that Pacaso is the manager of the home and the LLC on behalf of the ownership group. So the reason why that's important is because it enables us to eliminate all the friction that would exist if you were to do this on your own. Meaning, if you were to go, like, let's say you and Ken and two of your buddies wanted to buy that home in Hilton Head, you wanted to sort of recreate your own Pacaso model, nothing stops you from doing that. You guys could easily go, 4 people could go buy a house in an LLC. But what's going to happen, most likely, is you guys are going to become frenemies at the end of that experience, because there's so much friction. Who's going to manage it? Who's going to figure out who gets what dates? How are we going to agree on design decisions? How do we deal with joint and several liability if we get a loan on the property? How are you going to deal with resale? It's very hard to sell, a share of a home that you and your buddies own, right? So Pacaso insurance, a lot of these homes are in markets that are uninsurable. Like many people in the Palisades fire most recently did not have insurance because it's very hard to get insurance. With Pacaso, you get insurance because we've got a global portfolio and a global relationship with one of the largest insurance companies in the world, which enables us to distribute the risk across a global portfolio and insure properties that would otherwise be uninsurable. So there's all these advantages associated with having a full service, fully managed ownership experience on top of this proven LLC model that's been around for a long time.
Now, you offer financing then too as well, correct?
Yeah. I mean, in fact, we basically invented a co-ownership loan. Like prior to Pacaso, there was no way to get a loan on 1/8 of a share or part of a home. The only way that you could get a loan, if you and 3 of your buddies bought a home together, the only way to get a loan would be to get a traditional mortgage and have everybody co-sign on the loan. And that is a big, complicated process, first and foremost. But the other problem with that model is joint and several liability. So let's say that one person in your ownership group defaults in the joint and several liability scenario, you and the other co-owners would be on the hook for their default. Pacaso saw that as a problem and an opportunity and partnered with a bunch of big leading financial institutions to come up with a new loan structure. So when you buy a Pacaso and get financing, if one of your co-owners were to default on the loan, Pacaso would step in and deal with that default, so the other owners are not on the hook. Now, we've never had a default because we've got a bunch of credit-worthy borrowers, that are putting a minimum of 30% down. But if or when we do have a default, it's not going to create any headaches for the other owners in the group. Pacaso is going to step in and deal with that.
That's brilliant. Do you guys have an app that people can go on and just book their times or order, the maintenance? I need maintenance. Is there an app for that?
Yeah. So that's one of the other things that we invented. So we basically created what is now the best in class, first of its kind, AI driven scheduling platform. So when you become a Pacaso owner, you get access to a Pacaso app. And in that app is a calendar feature. And the calendar is pretty, intuitive and straightforward on the front end. Like when you look at it, it kind of just feels like booking a hotel on Expedia or something. Click your dates and reserve. But on the back end, there's a series of rules and algorithms that we call Smart Stay. That's our proprietary technology. Smart Stay distributes the calendar fairly and equitably amongst the ownership group. So if you own 1/8 of the home, Smart Stay will ensure that you get 1/8 of the peak season, 1/8 of the non-peak season, 1/8 of the holidays. And it's very dynamic. You can block time in your home 2 years in advance. You can change at any time. we also have this concept that's super popular that we recently released just a couple of months ago, and is just growing in popularity like crazy, called Swap. So now you can actually, in addition to being able to block dates, you can also swap dates in your home with other owners, or you can swap dates in your home with other Pacaso owners in other homes around the world. So let's say that you own a Pacaso in Napa, yeah, and you want to go to Paris.
Yeah.
You can now swap time in your home and for this Pacaso in Paris that would have costed you, $40,000 a week to rent. Right. And it's an experience, and it doesn't cost you anything, right? Because you already own the home. And in addition to all the savings that it provides, because this Pacaso network is all luxury and all maintained to a high-end standard, there's an element of consistency that it's way beyond what you would ever get, renting an Airbnb. Like when you show up at a Pacaso, it feels like a Pacaso. Every little thing is dialed, the internet's set up, there's automated codes that you get in your app. So you walk into this home and it feels familiar to you. You're not having to like coordinate with a host and figure out all this stuff. It's just all automated in a familiar, elevated experience that you've grown accustomed to.
You guys have thought of everything. Are you able to
probably not everything, but
what's that?
No, I said probably not everything, but we've thought of a lot. Our customers, and fortunately, we don't even have to think of most of it. Our customers give us the feedback, and I think the best businesses are really good at listening to their customers and what they need. And that's certainly something that we try to prioritize. But no, you're not allowed renting your home out. And that is a really important feature, not a bug, associated with this model. I mean, and look, I'm a big fan of the rental platforms. Companies like Airbnb, I think have really kind of transformed the world in an amazing way. And they solve a really meaningful problem, but they're solving a different problem than the one that we're solving. And the way that I think about it is on a spectrum of usage. On one end of the spectrum, you have what I'll describe as frequent usage, which is somebody who's going to use a home 4 or 5, 6 months a year or more. And on that end of the spectrum, the best solution is buying a whole home. On the other end of the spectrum, you have transient usage or infrequent usage. That's someone that's going to go to a location once a year or less. And there's a bunch of great solutions for that, namely hotels and Airbnbs. We sit somewhere in the middle. We're solving the problem for the family that wants to go to a location multiple times a year, but doesn't plan or need to use the property more than 4 or 5 months a year. That's where Pacaso's sweet spot exists. And most of our owners don't want renters in their home. You know what I mean? They like the idea. And not that renters are bad people, but there's just a different level of accountability and relationship to the home when you're renting. When you're renting, you're there for a weekend. You don't know the neighbors. You're probably never going to come back. You don't have any skin in the game, right? So if you throw a big party and the neighbors are upset, no cost to you as a renter. So it creates this like renter mentality, this short-term renter mentality. But when you're an owner, when you own a property, you know the neighbors, you care about the community, you care about the home, you've got a lot of skin in the game, you treat things differently, right? It's like the old never buy a used rental car, from the rental car company.
Sure, yeah.
Kind of same model here. I mean, these are owners that have a lot of skin in the game, that take care of their home, and they don't want renters in their home. So it is an owner-only, exclusive, community and network of homes.
Yeah. Well, how do you guys find out where the demand is?
Most of it kind of comes to us. So a lot of us came from Zillow. So I actually co-founded Pacaso with a guy named Spencer Raskoff, who was the co-founder and CEO of Zillow for 13 years. And he and I were fortunate to attract a bunch of great people who we worked with together for the last 15 years or so. So we have a lot of experience in building real estate marketplaces and travel marketplaces. Prior to Zillow, Spencer was the co-founder of Hotwire, which sold to Expedia. So we've basically built this marketplace in such a way that we're able to get a lot of signal from our customers. So when we display listings on our website, we can see how much traffic, how many leads are being generated, how many favorites are happening on a particular home. And we use those signals to inform, which markets we go to, which markets do we add homes. But we also have other versions of our model that give us signal on demand as well. One example of that would be our lead buyer model. So the lead buyer concept is when somebody comes to us with a home that's not on our website. So a great example of this is the first home we ever did in Paris. We didn't have any plans to be in Paris at the time. And what is now a customer, but at the time a prospective customer, came to us and said, I want to be in Paris, and I think I've got 4 other people who would also like to own with me. Would you guys do a home in Paris? And we said, sure. So we went and we found a home with him, and him and 4 of his friends bought into this home, and that's how we entered Paris. So there's lots of different ways that demand comes to us, but those are kind of the 2 primary ways.
But you have a waiting list now, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, on some homes in some markets, like we're in 40 destinations, which is, a lot relative to the age of the company, but it's nothing relative to the size of the market. I mean, like, especially when you look abroad, I mean, we've got pretty good coverage in the West Coast of California or of the US, and in the mountain towns, like the Colorado and Utah markets, as well as the, kind of Southeast from the Carolinas down to Florida. But other than that, there's a bunch of, white space in the US, places where we haven't, entered yet. And then when you get outside of the US, wow, it's just like, the opportunities are endless. I mean, in Mexico, for example, we have 1 dot on the map in Cabo, but there are so many amazing places in Mexico. Same with Paris, London, France, the UK, Italy, the Caribbean. We're working on a property right now in St. Bart's that I think is going to be amazing, but there's so many other amazing places in the Caribbean. It's just kind of endless in terms of where people want to be. And because of the underutilization problem that I mentioned before, the fact that most people only use second homes 5 or 6 weeks a year, the model basically works everywhere. Yeah. Because within this asset class.
Yep. Brilliant. When you get where you're going to go, what parameters are you looking for in a particular property in that area?
It depends on the area, meaning the type, like the size of the property and the amenities tend to be specific to the attributes of a market. So an example would be in Palm Springs, where it's really hot. We must have a pool. We would never add a home in Palm Springs without a pool. Whereas in Lake Tahoe, I don't think we have a single home with a pool in Lake Tahoe. But in Lake Tahoe, things like garages or hot tubs tend to be more important. So there are some location-specific amenities that matter. Size-wise, as a general rule, I would say our homes are typically like 3 to 5 bedrooms. That would be kind of the median sweet spot. But that does vary a little bit by market. Like in some of the urban hubs like Paris, I mean, we've done really well with 2-bedroom, small 2-bedroom flats. So it just kind of depends. The price points are typically $3 to $6 million per home, which translates into like a $400,000 to $700,000 price point per share, per 1/8 share. But we go all the way up to $20 million. We've got homes in places like Malibu or Aspen, that are more expensive markets where we have higher priced homes.
Yeah, I never even thought about going to such high price point. That'd be.
I mean, outside
Yeah.
of Picasso, co-ownership is happening at much higher price points. Like there was a well-documented one that happened in Aspen with Steve Wynn, where Steve Wynn and another partner co-owned. They bought a $75 million home in Aspen
Yeah.
together. There was another one that I saw, not a Picasso, that somebody was kind of trying to do on their own with a Frank Lloyd Wright home in Scottsdale. Like what's interesting about this, like our typical client is like 5 million in net worth or above. But we've got some clients that are multi-billionaires, and many clients that are in the hundreds of millions. So I mention that because the buying power that you get through co-ownership is definitely an advantage. Like that's one of the main reasons why people do this. But I would say even more important than that, it's just a smarter and better and easier way to own, which is why billionaires are doing it, right? It's like, even if you have the money to throw away on a home you're not going to use, it's a hassle. And it's the same reason why NetJets is the leader in private aviation. Like all of NetJets customers can buy their own plane. Their customers start at 50 million in net worth and above. They could all afford their own plane.
Yeah.
But the only thing better than owning your own plane is owning an eighth of a plane with NetJets, because
Right.
it's fully managed. You have the best pilots, the newest fleet, the best safety record. You have the ability to trade up and down to different size planes in the portfolio. If your plane goes down for maintenance, you're not grounded. They bring another plane in. It's like there's all these advantages associated with being, part of a fully managed, platform. And that's what we're creating. And that's why this is becoming the preferred way to own a second home.
I can see that it is, because anybody with extreme wealth like that, time is the most precious thing for them, and having to manage a second or third or fourth home doesn't make any sense. So when they can do
Exactly.
something, do you guys have any competition, real competition?
And not really. My philosophy on competition, has always kind of been like, don't worry about it. Like, focus on your own business, focus on your customers. Competition will take care of itself. So I've never really been like a competition focused entrepreneur as a general rule. But I will say the Pacaso experience was interesting because when we launched at a fortunate time with lots of COVID demand and low interest rates. So our business kind of exploded in a good way overnight. And as a result, we got a lot of attention. We were in the press a lot, big valuations quickly and all that stuff. So it attracted a lot of competition. And overnight, there were like overnight, I mean, within a year,
Yeah.
there were probably 20 Pacaso copycats that I've never seen anything like it. Just exact replicas of our business. They just with a
That's when
different
you know
name.
you've done it right.
Yeah, I mean, they even used our tagline. They ripped off our website. Most of them were in Europe and Latin America, but a few of them were in the US. So at first, it seemed like it might be a pretty competitive space. But then what happened is by the end of 2022, interest rates had tripled, war in Ukraine started, the tech public markets corrected in a big way, driven largely by the SPACs, which basically imploded.
Yeah.
And all of that, and then there was a pending election coming up. All of that led to a really slow real estate market. And we went from, as an entire real estate industry, we went from over 6 million home sales at the peak in 2021 to less than 4 million, or around 4 million home sales in 2023 and in 2024, which was a 33% decline in the entire category. So if you think about the impact that probably had on second homes, I bet the second home market transaction volume declined by 75 or 80%. So that kind of wiped out all the competition because they weren't able to raise any capital. The demand really kind of fell off a cliff. And it's like, if you're a consumer thinking about this, like, do you want to go buy from some fly-by-night startup that has no capital, no scale, no track record? Or do you want to buy from the global leader that sold well over $1 billion of these units, that's raised hundreds of millions of dollars from leading investors? And it kind of gave us, a big opportunity. So now we're kind of the only game in town. We're probably 50 times larger than the next closest in terms of like homes that we've sold through than the next closest Pacaso copycat. And that's great. It was a tough, I mean, it was a tough 2023 and 2024 for sure. But it enabled us to emerge stronger. A good downturn is an opportunity for a company to tighten their belt and think outside of the box. And, we're leaner, meaner, and a lot more educated, on what works and what doesn't today. And there's all these, the complexity and scale of our business is like one of our greatest advantages, but also one of our greatest disadvantages. And the disadvantage comes from the fact that it's just a hard business to pull off. I mean, this isn't like selling widgets on a website. In order for the thing to work, all of it has to work. You have to be able to buy the homes. You have to be able to aggregate the demand. You have to have access to lots of capital. You have to manage them. You have to have a design function. You have to have brokerage functions in every single state and the ability to represent the resales. You have to have the scale to get access to financing on this new model that's never been done before, the scale to get access to insurance. All these things are very hard. It's kind of like Amazon. Imagine how hard it would be to replicate Amazon's business today. It's just too complicated. So that is now the complexity of our business, I think, has become our moat. And it's like, I welcome new competition. It's like, good luck.
No, you're not saying good. You're saying, I dare you.
It's like, it'll make us better. I mean, I don't
agree.
think, I don't think that we'll be the only game in town for forever, but I think it's really hard. And, I wish anybody else trying it good luck.
Yeah. Have interest rates affected you guys at all?
Yes. But they only affected us in the sense that they affected kind of the whole market by causing everybody to freeze. Like people became so accustomed to low interest rates that when interest rates tripled, everybody was kind of like, oh crap, I missed the window. I should have bought, so I'm not going to buy now because rates have gone up. So there was a period of like, I'd say it was a good 18, maybe even 24 months, like from the middle of 2022 through like the middle of 2024, where a lot of people were just like hesitating to buy because they were still anchored on the interest rates of the past. But the reality, I think time has given people the ability to adjust to the new normal. Like the interest rate environment that we're in now is the new normal. And frankly, it's not that bad. I mean, sure, we'd all love to go back to 2% rates, but that's just an unrealistic and uninformed, desire. Like that's just probably not going to happen anytime soon. And interestingly, so now interest rates are not an issue for us. They were for 24 months for that period. But interestingly, I think that high interest rates are actually going to create more of a tailwind for our business than a headwind. And the reason why is because higher interest rates impact the alternative to Pacaso, which is buying a whole home, 8 times more than it impacts a Pacaso. If you're buying a $5 million home on your own and interest rates go from 2 to 6%, that's a big number. The annual, I mean, what is that? Is that 200 grand a year? Am I doing that math right on a $5 million loan?
I don't have a calculator.
It's a lot. Simple interest, right? I mean, if you're talking about 4% swing on let's just use a $1 million loan for simplicity. If you're buying a $1 million house and rates go up 4%, that's a $40,000 swing just in simple interest, which the interest is not simple in the way that it's amortized. So the effect on your cash flow with principal and interest would be much worse than that. But when you're only buying an eighth of a home, it's like not that big of a deal. It's like a couple $100 a month or something, which is, a rounding error for our customers. Like they spend more than that on their coffee, in a month or a quarter. So It's just not a big deal. And I think co-ownership is really a great solution for the housing affordability problem at large. And I think as houses become less affordable due to home price appreciation and interest rates, I think co-ownership is just going to grow in popularity.
Yeah. Do you know about how many properties you guys have right now across the globe?
We don't really publish the specific number, but it's in the order of magnitude of a couple hundred properties.
Okay. All right. So you guys are really just getting started.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're like, it goes back to that complexity thing. It's like, it's a heavy lift. You know, every time we add a home, there's a lot that goes into it.
Sure.
So it's like, takes time to build the portfolio, but like it just compounds exponentially because once a home is in our ecosystem, it stays in our ecosystem for forever. So not only is Pacaso, you know, like we kind of position Pacaso as the co-ownership thing, but if we were really describing it accurately, Pacaso is kind of like, you know, a second home platform more broadly. I mean, we're not just facilitating co-ownership. We're also doing property management, financing, design and furnishing, resale, insurance. You know, so I think as time goes on into the future, Pacaso will become, you know, the global leader, or has the potential to become the global leader of luxury second homes, right? Like the platform that people rely on for luxury second homes. And there's all kinds of different, you know, opportunities that are just like flowing organically for us, like furniture, for example. There aren't many design firms that are like full stack design and furniture. I mean, all of our furniture is custom made, right? Like right from not all, but almost all of our furniture, custom made, you know, high-end design, right from the supplier. And we've done, you know, over $1 billion of these things so far. And we've created like a look and feel and a vibe with the Pacaso home that people just love. Like when you walk into a Pacaso home, it feels like a Pacaso. Like my Pacaso homes are way more dialed than, you know, my whole primary home because because we've perfected this over so many homes over and over and over again. So we now have customers asking us if we can design their home or if they can buy our furniture or if they can use our insurance because they can no longer get insurance. Or, you know, maybe they own a second home in a whole second home in a destination, but they're dealing with all the headaches. So they're asking, we're already in the market. We already manage homes for a living. Could we manage their home to simplify their whole home ownership experience? You know, financing, people doing this on their own. Maybe there are use cases where 3 or 4 buddies want to own a property on their own. Could they use our financing? You know, these are all examples of like services that we've created that have become best in class for luxury second homes. And I think that there's a lot of interesting opportunity for our business to grow in, you know, unique ways in the future.
Absolutely. You're not just growing the core business, you're also growing the services that go with it. And so that's revenue. I'm sure you guys weren't planning on it in the beginning, and this is newfound revenue for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely believed that there would be recurring revenue streams in these services, right? Because of the relationship that we have with the homes effectively into perpetuity. But it's been a lot more exciting and faster than I envisioned, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty daggone exciting. I mean, I think we have an opportunity here to build a huge business over time.
And it's just so well orchestrated. It's impressive. Do you guys have a number of properties you need to buy or want to buy every month? Or you guys just, when I get a certain number of people in a certain area, we're going to buy a house there?
A little bit of both. I mean, we definitely like any good business, we have a strategic plan for the year and models for what we think we can do in a given month or quarter. But we also have a lot of opportunities that just come to us that we don't plan on. I mean, I've shared a few of those examples with things like lead buyer or design or property management. But, you know, other examples would be like our sell down product. So there's a lot of there's a lot of second homeowners who own 100% of their second home. And as I talked about before, only use it 10% of the time. They don't want to sell the home because they love it, but they also don't need all of it. Pacaso now offers a new solution where you can sell part of your home. So you can come to Pacaso and say, I want to sell 50% of my home, or I want to sell 75% of my home. Pacaso, if it meets our criteria, and we believe it's, the type of property that our customers would be interested in, we'll take it on as a sell down, and we'll bring new buyers, new co-owners into the mix. So you as an owner get to effectively take your chips off the table, get liquidity from this asset that you're just sitting on while retaining the ownership that you need to enjoy the home. And that's, opportunities like that are creative ways that can kind of influence how and where we expand outside of the forecasted model.
Yeah. Who's your largest demographic that's buying this? Is it millennials?
No, it's 45. Well, I can't remember where the millennial cutoff is. So maybe there are some millennials, but age-wise, 45 to 65 is kind of the sweet spot for us. They are all families with money, obviously, discretionary luxury product. So kind of 3 million net worth is probably the very low end, but most of our families are like 5 million net worth and above. Probably 5 to 50 million is probably the sweet spot. Most of them, 70% of them or so, live within a short drive, like a 3 to 4 hour drive or less from their second home destination they choose, or a short flight in the markets that are fly markets. Like there's certain markets like in San Francisco, Napa and Tahoe are the two most popular second home destinations, and almost everybody drives to those markets. But there are other markets like Park City, super popular second home destination, but for whatever reason, most people fly. We don't have a lot of people buying in Salt Lake or from Salt Lake that are buying in Park City. Most people who are buying in Park City live in LA or San Francisco or New York or Dallas.
Okay. Can you kind of walk us through your fee structure for Pacaso?
Yeah, so we charge a service fee on the front end, which is effectively a markup of the real estate. It's 15 to 20% depending on the home and the situation, and then we charge so that's the only one-time fee. And then once the home is in the ecosystem, we have services that we provide and we charge for those services. So financing is a service. Most of these services we pass through at kind of cost and run them at break even today, by the way. But financing is one example of that, where, we charge origination fees for the financing. Property management. So we manage all these properties. We charge market rates for that. Actually, we try to benchmark and be about 15% less than what it would cost us to hire a third-party manager. So we do benchmarking every year, and that's just based on home size. A 2,000 square foot home in Palm Springs costs less to manage than a 8,000 square foot home in Aspen, for example. And then let's see, what else? We make a little bit of money on furniture and design, and then resale. So when somebody goes to resell their Pacaso, we've also created the first of its kind resale marketplace. Just like the financing and the scheduling solution I described earlier, we created the first ever co-ownership resale marketplace. Think of it as like Zillow, but for co-owned homes. Meaning before Pacaso, there was no way or place that you could go sell an eighth of a home effectively. So we created it. So now when you buy a Pacaso and you want to sell your eighth or your quarter and you go to resell, you do that through our marketplace, and we are the listing agent. So we make brokerage commissions on that business as well. So those are the primary revenue streams that we have today. All the other costs associated with operating the home, things like taxes, insurance, utilities, all those we manage. We pay all those bills. We prepare tax statements at the end of the year, all that stuff on behalf of the owners. We don't mark those services up at all.
Okay.
If taxes cost, $10,000 in a year, that's what you pay. There's no markup on those.
Okay. How are you guys marketing this?
We market through all the kind of traditional channels,
Mm.
on the internet. We have brand marketing. We do partnership marketing. But the biggest source of our business is actually word of mouth and referrals, believe it or not. 40% of our business comes from repeat and referral, which is by far the largest channel for us. We also work through real estate agents. So any real estate agent can bring Pacaso a client and earn a full commission. We pay 3% commission no matter what. Even if it's a market where 2% buy-side commission is customary, we pay 3%. And the other thing is we make the deal as easy as a referral. So normally when you're representing the buyer as a real estate professional, there's a lot of work in that. With Pacaso, there's not a lot of work. You bring the buyer to us. We do all the heavy lifting. We keep you informed throughout the entire process, and you make 3%. So real estate agents are a big part of our strategy and kind of an extension of our sales team, if you will. And real estate agents love it because it's like found money. It doesn't compete with their whole home business at all. These people who are buying Pacasos wouldn't have gone out and bought an $8 million whole home on their own, right? It's like if they would have bought a whole home, it would have been much less expensive, more likely. But the more likely scenario is that they would have continued to be window shoppers, especially in the second home space. So many people window shop. They kick the tires. They visit Napa Valley. They call their real estate agent. They tour homes, and they do that year after year after year, and they never buy, because it's a discretionary purchase.
We've seen them. Yeah.
So the Pacaso is the tool for real estate agents to convert window shoppers into homeowners. And it's like in a market like I was actually at, I was speaking yesterday at the annual conference for the agency real estate firm.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking about this on stage actually, where like, what can real estate agents be doing, to grow their business right now? And I think the answer is think outside of the box. At times like this, when things are turbulent, which they are, and transaction volume, while improving, is still low, you got to think outside of the box. I think about like when I was selling real estate in 2008, that actually led to the creation of Dotloop. It's like it was a moment in time that felt really challenging and problematic, but forced me to think outside of the box and led to this new company. Or Pacaso, when we launched in 2020, I mean, it turned out to be great, but it sure didn't feel great. We raised our capital in February of 2020. The world shut down in March of 2020. We weren't even accepting Amazon packages in our house. And here we were trying to convince people to share a vacation home. Can you imagine how daunting that would be? But yet it forced us to think outside of the box and get creative, and led to this incredible business. So like most people listening to this have probably never heard of Pacaso. This is a tool in your toolkit that will enable you to do a lot more business, to create new listings. Like think about all your past clients that you've sold who are sitting on these houses that they don't use. Like this is something new and interesting and value added that you can bring to them to create transactions.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. You're embracing the real estate agents in your community. I think that it can be a win-win for everybody. What is your long-term goals with Pacaso?
So long-term, I believe that co-ownership in the vacation home asset class will be as ubiquitous as condominiums in a big city. To me, it seems inevitable. Like because there's people have more flexibility due to work from home. People are more comfortable and preferential to sharing economy kind of solutions like this that are more efficient and smarter than the old way. And home prices are just going up, not down. So it's like a trifecta, of challenges for the traditional second home model. And co-ownership is really the perfect solution. And that's why we're seeing it grow so quickly. I mean, already 25% of all homes being purchased right now are being purchased in some form of co-ownership with non-relationship partners. And based on all the studies that we've done, the co-ownership category is growing by 20 to 30%. year over year. Google searches for co-ownership are up almost 70% in the last decade. Like this thing is in its early days, but is going to be huge. And I think Pacaso is the global category leader, and I think we have an opportunity to build a massive business that enriches the lives of hundreds of thousands of people and creates a ton of value for our shareholders. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention, but since we're talking about it now, we're doing something super innovative right now with respect to fundraising, which is making our growth round. So we've raised 3 rounds of capital, A, B, and C. We're currently in the process of raising our 4th round, which is our Series D. And we decided to do it through an unconventional path by making it available to the public. Anybody can invest in Pacaso, the company. And when most private venture-backed companies like us they raise through a channel called Regulation D. And Regulation D is what we use to raise from our investors like SoftBank and Mavron, Fifth Wall, and all these other high-profile firms. But the challenge with Regulation D is you're only allowed to raise from accredited investors, and you're not allowed to advertise the offering to the public. So any normal person, that's not part of one of these firms doesn't have an option to invest in companies like Pacaso under Regulation D. There's a regulation that's quite new and growing in popularity called Regulation A, which enables us to raise from the public. It's kind of like going public in terms of the process. Like we have to file our public financials, or we have to file our financials publicly. We have to adhere to certain, compliance and disclosure, rules that are governed by the SEC. But it enables us to make Pacaso available to the public. So we currently have our Series D round that's available to the public. Anyone listening to this call can go online while it's open and invest. And it's super easy. You can check it out on our website, pacaso.com/invest, PACASO.com. And you can find all of our information, all of our investor presentations, all of our financials, customer videos, whatever you want to see. And it's super cool. So if you like what you're hearing and you believe in the long-term opportunity that we believe in, you can join us in that journey, which is pretty cool.
Is the end game, are you guys going to go public at some point?
That is our first plan. That's plan A. Yeah. I can't share any specifics with respect to, when that might be, and certainly no guarantees, but we do think that this company will benefit from being public. We aspire to be public. And, when the time is right for the business, we will be, or we plan to be. The other thing is Regulation A is kind of a nice stepping stone into preparing to be a public company, because we have to do a lot of the things that you have to do as a public company, the audited financials and all the disclosure and reporting stuff. So it's kind of a good intermediate step. But the other way that people get liquidity is through sales. Our intention is not to sell the company, but it doesn't mean it couldn't happen. That could happen as well. But the focus now is we're early days. We've only been at this for 4.5 years, and the last 2 years were a grind for the entire real estate industry, as I'm sure everyone on this call can relate. So we've really only been at it 2.5 years, because 2 of those years were about survival, grinding it through the downturn. So fortunately, it feels like we're through that, which is great. So we have a lot of opportunity ahead, and the focus now is focusing on our customers, focus on growth, adding more markets, and we are growing nicely. The last time we reported financials was our H1 results. Despite a very challenging real estate market in 2024, we grew in H1 by 36% adjusted gross profit year over year. So yeah, we've got a lot of opportunity ahead, and we're just focused on that.
You've been a founder a couple of times now. What do you think is the hardest thing for you about leading a company like this?
Well, I think the most important thing is that you surround the company with the best people for the job, and you empower those people to do their best work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy to do. I don't know that it's the hardest thing, but it's certainly the most important thing. The hardest thing is probably navigating. It's either navigating challenging markets like the one we just went through, or it's just the executional complexity of our business. Like this is not an easy business to do. And we're doing a great job of it, but I don't take that for granted, a single second of a single day. Like every day I'm thinking about how do we make sure that our homes are clean and functional and safe? How do I make sure that we're identifying the right homes in the right markets? How do we make sure that we're listening to our customers and innovating on the product offering to continue to meet and exceed their expectations? And it's just super hard to do that, with a business that's this complex. And then on the downturn thing, like, as I mentioned, the last 2 years wiped out, a lot of companies in the real estate space. Most companies that are like Pacaso that raised a lot of money, had big valuations, a lot of those guys got completely wiped out in 2023 and 2024. And we were fortunate, we had a great team, great product. We had raised a lot of capital before that. And we not only weathered the storm, but we emerged stronger.
Yeah.
So now, leaner, meaner, growing, innovating on some amazing products like Swap. I haven't even talked about Swap yet, but Swap's one of many examples of a big innovation that came out of the last couple of years where, maybe I did.
Yeah, we touched on it.
I can't remember.
We touched on it.
Yeah, but that's an example of an innovation that, came out of the last couple of years. Like if we were still in 2021, kind of fat and happy on low interest rates and lots of COVID demand, we may not have created Swap. Downturns force you to think outside of the box and innovate. And but it wasn't easy. I think that's the point.
Well, nothing has been easy. I mean, you launched right before COVID, so that was a good kick in the teeth. And then, COVID, getting through COVID, I mean, so you guys have had time to fine tune it and you made it through that. So if you've made it through that, you guys are going to make it through almost all the obstacles. What's the best thing about running a company like this?
The best thing about running a company like this, well, for me personally, it's, I believe that, life is short and therefore we should try to spend our time working on and pursuing things that we believe in.
Yeah.
And this is a mission that I really believe in. It's impacted my life so much. I decided to commit what hopefully will be the rest of my life to this cause. And so there's nothing more meaningful than being able to work on the thing that you really believe in. So that's like my personal answer. In terms of like my professional answer, like as CEO of Pacaso, I would say the most rewarding thing is just how well it works. Like when I talk to there's nothing more rewarding than hearing about how your product changes people's lives. Like last week, I was in Orange County where we have a sales office, and I was doing calls with the sales team on prospective customers. And I got to talk to some of our customers who had recently used the Swap feature. And it was just one after another. They would tell me about how much Pacaso has changed their life and all these priceless memories that the second home has enabled for their family. But then we launched Swap, and they're like, I didn't believe Pacaso could get any better. And then next thing I know, like I'm at a Pacaso in London.
Yeah.
And my mind is just blown. And, when you hear those stories, it's just like, it reminds you that that's why we do what we do, particularly in those moments like the last couple of years where there were a lot of tough moments where it's like, it's helpful to have those sources of light, to keep you energized. So that's definitely the most rewarding.
And I think you guys will keep coming with ideas. I mean, you guys have looked at pretty much every avenue for extra revenue, and it's very powerful. And I wish you guys the best of luck. I'm going to keep watching it. I know I've been in Ken's property in Hilton Head, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's just a stone path to the beach. You can go for a run. There's a pool. Beautiful property. Absolutely love it. You just bring your toothbrush and away you go.
I
Perfect.
love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Thanks,
So
Joe. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I'll be sure to share that link for you to post below for anyone who wants to
yeah,
invest and join us.
yeah. Please send it over. We'll put it down. And then as you keep growing, I'll keep reaching out. We'll get you back on here for a progress report. And I'm expecting big things. And I'll get to say I knew Austin win. He would take my
Oh,
call. Let's
well, I'll
hope
always
anyway,
take your
right?
call. I'll always take
All
your
right.
call. Thanks, Joe.
Austin,
Take
thank you
care.
very much. For those of you watching, thank you for tuning in today. If you could, please give us a like. And if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe.